Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here. Another victory, a win, another clean sheet. Wasn't perfect, but end of the day, got the job done, and that's all you can ask for. Get to the next round of the competition. And I guess it just shows that foundations are being built by Thomas Frank. I mean, there's 7 changes yesterday and they still won 3-0. Yeah, wasn't perfect, absolutely. Second half was a tough watch at times, but again, got the job done. And I mean, it means now he's had 5 victories, 5 clean sheets in 7 competitive matches since the Premier League season began. That's 1 draw, 1 defeat, 14 goals scored. You could sling in the UEFA Super Cup if you want to into that mix too. It depends on your outlook, I guess, whether you see that as a defeat, a draw. Technically, it was a defeat, even if it came after a draw. You could see it as 5 minutes from a victory and a clean sheet. Depends what kind of glass, half empty, half full, or spilling over you are. They didn't win. It almost does not mean achieved anything. So last night, 3-0, Carabao Cup third round, of course. League One visitors in Doncaster Rovers. Low crowd in terms of, that kind of game. Low crowd for that stadium anyway, 42,473. So that means, around 20,000 Spurs supporters just decided, nah. Whether that's because of the pricing of the game, whether it's just because a late night in London they just didn't fancy it on a Wednesday night. Thinking back, I think Carabao Cup early games against kind of lower league opposition don't normally get huge crowds. So, I mean, Doncaster brought a fair few, maybe about 4,000 or so. They definitely took out a big old, because obviously they get a bigger section because it's a cup game. And those who were there, you got to see a little sprinkling of good moments across the 90 or so minutes, 94, 95 minutes. Like I say, a team performance that went and dipped heavily at a good 20 minutes at the start of the second half. But look, it's a team that, with no disrespect to them, because they played well, but they're 2 divisions below, and Spurs should be kind of seeing them off without probably having to get into top gear. And I think, in essence, really, 3 moments of real quality just showed that difference between the levels. And that was enough to see off Doncaster, who did have their chances. They did. So if you're not aware, you've been on the moon, you completely missed the game. 14 minutes in, the Spurs opened the scoring. João Palhinha playing at centre-back rather than in midfield. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Yet he was at the other end of the pitch. Scores a lovely acrobatic overhead kick, hooks the ball back into the net behind him. After, I think it was the keeper touched it on and a defender headed it and it didn't really go anywhere. And there he was to spin, and there was a Xavi Simons corner, by the way, Simons corner. 3 minutes later, Odegaard gets down the left, does really well, step overs galore. That's the kind of thing I want to see him do, just beating his man, gets to the byline, pulls the low ball across. Nothing that Jay McGrath, the Doncaster skipper, can do. Straight into the net off of his leg. And then, what else did we have in the first half? We had a Bentancur header that was cleared off the line, yet for some unknown reason was given as a goal kick. Archie Gray hit a nice low shot that was saved. Kinski pulled off a terrific dive, a full-length dive to keep out Owen Bailey's volley. Very, very good. Yeah, he's a skipper, wasn't he? Doncaster skipper, Owen Bailey. It was... Sorry, I'm just taking myself now back to the start of the second half, which was just awful. It was like it hadn't really started. Very few chances in that early period, apart from, I think there was a free kick, Glenn Middleton, Doncaster player, whipped wide. Actually, that came from a foul. If you've watched this back, it's insane. It's a foul given against Kevin Danso. There was never a foul in a million. He clearly hooks the ball. And I don't know what they were watching, but obviously at these rounds, because certain grounds and stadiums and clubs can't have VAR, you can't do it as a blanket rule across everyone in that round. I think that's the way to do it. Ultimately, the second half, as it was won by Brennan Johnson, who's probably actually by far Spurs' most dangerous player in that second half. And across the game, actually, he set up 2 decent chances for Matisse Tell and 1 for Richarlison, and eventually just thought, I'm going to do it myself. Beautiful pass from Lucas Bergvall, who came on later in the game. Just picked out Johnson's run through the middle between defenders, and Johnson runs on, dinks a little finish over the on-rushing keeper. Beautiful stuff. Absolutely beautiful stuff. And that was that. That was the 3-0. And I have to ask? I asked the first 3 in the press conference. The obligatory, what did you think of the performance question, which came first. And Thomas Frank said, first and foremost, happy with the win, happy with the clean sheet, and happy that we're through to the next round. That was the aim. I think the first half was good, controlled the game, created chances we wanted and needed. I think we could have scored more goals in the first half, actually. Had some big opportunities for Matisse Tell, Rodri, and a few other situations that were dangerous. Second half was more disjointed. I think we threw the ball away too easily. The pressure was not top, but also praise to Doncaster. They came very brave, very good to stretchers. So if the pressure is not perfect, they made it difficult. So praise to them as well. In case you're wondering why, if you get bored by asking, what did you think of the performance? Why do you ask it each time? It's because how do I put this? It's a question that can create other questions. So it's the one that the manager is expecting. Occasionally I'll mix it up ever so slightly, but mostly they're expecting that, and they will give you their thoughts on the game. And sometimes they'll say stuff within that you hadn't thought of, and it kind of informs other questions that you can kind of extrapolate from that. So yes, while it bores me immensely, and in a situation where I only knew I was going to get 1 question in a press conference, you would not see me taking that first question. But I feel they kind of look to me to do it because no one else wants to take it. But I'm fine with it, as long as I can ask 1 or 2 after, which are the questions I actually want to ask. What else? Doncaster had Damola Ajayi in their starting 11. He's been playing the cup games for them. Not so much in the league, kind of coming off the bench more often than not. But Spurs gave permission for him to play, which is a funny little quirk that in the Premier League you can't do that. In Europe, you have to do it, whereas in the Cups, you can give permission for it to happen. So they did, and he had his moments. I thought he did pretty well, to be honest. He had this volley that Ulasanya headed wide. Kind of looked like a cross, but I think it was probably a shot. But yeah, ultimately, he just couldn't find a way through. I think he played 61 minutes or so. But yes, you might have seen Instagram. I've got a little eyelash that's constantly going on my eye. So apologies if you see me going like that. I'm not winking at you. I've just got a really weird little eyelash that is trying to destroy me from the inside. Jed Spence. You saw it on Instagram. Jed Spence does his. It's become this thing, hasn't it? The Jed Spence Penitentiary, where he puts wingers into. It's a bit of fun, but he did one. If you scroll through all the photos he had from the game, the last one was young Damola, 19-year-old winger, behind bars with Jed smiling in front of them with the caption, "I'm sorry, little bro, welcome to the penitentiary." And fair play to Damola Ajayi, he responded with a gif of Neil Warnock. You know, that one where he kind of comes towards the camera like that. Which, if you know Jed Spence and Neil Warnock's background, is quite funny. So fair play to the teenager. But yes, it was all very light-hearted, and it would have been a huge experience for Damola Ajayi as well to come back there. It would have been really interesting to see what had happened if he had scored. Because I'd say Doncaster deserved a goal out of the encounter for what they did. And had he scored, it's a huge moment for him. Would he have celebrated, in front of that same South stand where we saw him celebrate his wonderful goal against Elfsborg? Or would he just go, I don't know what to do, and just kind of walk back to the centre circle? I don't know. It's we didn't get to see it. Maybe we will one day, but we didn't get to see it in this game. What else should we dive into? Let's start getting into the nitty-gritty of the performance. I think probably the midfield. That fact that when the team was announced, we all thought it was Archie Gray in central defence, and we thought João Palhinha was in the midfield, because that would kind of make the most sense in terms of what happened last year. However, we swiftly found out that was not the case, because Thomas Frank did a little pre-match interview where he said, no, it's João Palhinha in central defence. which I guess the idea behind that is that they weren't expecting Doncaster to have that many attacks, so João Palhinha would essentially be stepping out as a bit of a sweeper type and be able to have the ball at his feet and create from the back, as it were, start the moves going. That wasn't actually the case because the possession stats didn't really show two teams two divisions apart, because I think Spurs had 54.9% possession, which is not a huge amount. You should expect far more against a team that are in League One for a Premier League side. And Palhinha had to defend. He had 6 clearances, 2 tackles, 1 interception. I think it was only Kevin Danso of the Spurs players who had more defensive contributions. It's Kevin Danso who had to spend a large chunk of the first half getting his head glued up because he had an aerial collision in the box. And yeah, he must have instantly known there was blood going everywhere because he took a while. I was watching him as they were putting the glue stuff. He was like going, ugh! He was not enjoying that sensation. It was either the glue stuff or some kind of antiseptic they were putting on first, which must have stung. And then he had the kind of Terry Butcher, Paul Ince style headband. But there was just been white headbands in the past. This was black, so it looked far cooler really than a white one. But yeah, he came back onto the pitch, did 7 clearances in all, 4 ball recoveries, 2 blocks, and 2 tackles. It was him and Palhinha that were kind of far ahead in the Spurs defensive rankings. Palhinha just looked class. Obviously a brilliant goal, but also just the way he uses the ball. 30 years old, bargain of the summer window for me on that loan move. And if he continues like this, £27 million is a snip to make the deal permanent. And I guess it will be a good display, I suppose, of the new era at Tottenham Hotspur, because signing a 30-year-old for almost £30 million is not something that Tottenham would have done in the past. However, I guess it's a bit of a litmus test, isn't it, for the new regime, the Lewis family, money coming into the club. Do you spend that sort of money on a player that you know you are not going to get that sort of money back, but he's a player that is the kind of player that can make a huge difference. All eyes on, would they bother doing it in January, or would you wait until the summer? I don't know. Depends what his wages were at Bayern. I'm trying to remember if they took on all his wages or not. It feels like a lifetime ago I reported on that. But I guess you don't have to do it until the summer. But I don't know. It'd be interesting. Spurs always used to renegotiate deals as well with Daniel Levy at the top. Will they do that, or will they just pay the money? I don't know. We'll see. I asked Thomas Frank, I think it was my second question, was about Palhinha, and he said, I'm very happy with his performance. He's been very good for us since he joined. Again, just stepping into that centre-back role and played very well and scored a very good goal. So, yeah, I'm pleased. And I think Archie can play centre-back and right-back, but I see him more as a midfielder, and I'd like to see him today in that position. I was confident and I was happy that I was backed in that feeling about João as a centre-back. I thought Archie Gray was really good. I thought he just grew into the game as it wore on. His movement for me was the kind of his movement and his little link-up passes I just thought were excellent, because he's had this weird campaign where it would have felt more natural, this campaign, if he hadn't been thrown in so much last season due to the circumstances. I mean, he played 46 times, mostly as an 18-year-old last season, and out of position most of the time as well. This season just brought the 4 appearances in the 7 games. 8 games? Yes, 4 appearances in 8 games. But I think he's mostly impressed when called upon for a decent amount of time. Started against Burnley, and I thought he got better and better as that wore on as well. Pre-season against Newcastle, actually, if you want to go further back, I remember being really impressed with him in that. This one was like a real all-action display, and it continues to kind of tell me that I think he'll be a number 8 rather than number 6. I just get that feeling about him. He just links up play so nicely when he gets up there. And what he also was doing was linking up with the attackers, and also Pedro Porro really well. Pedro Porro, by the way, captain for the first time for the Spurs. Does that mean he's in the leadership group? Don't know. We'll see. I didn't ask him in the last press conference. I feel like I'm harassing Thomas Frank about the leadership group. Have you done it yet? Have you done it yet? And it kind of feels a little bit naggy. Although I must admit, I'm kind of tempted to ask him tomorrow, the press conference ahead of Wolves, with Pedro Porro being named captain. Now, ahead of Bentancur, who started, does that mean Pedro Porro is going to be part of the leadership group? Because I thought Kevin Danso might have a shout to be in the leadership group, but he was picked ahead of him. I guess I was going to say longevity, but Bentancur's been there longer. So, yeah, I might ask it. I might do. I might even say, look, I gave you a game off rather than asking you. It's not the biggest thing in the world. It's quite funny that he hasn't done it yet, and I keep reminding him because he seems a very organised man. I wonder if there's something else to it, but because it just seems odd that he wouldn't have just decided that one. Surely it wouldn't take that much time, but we'll see. But back to Archie Gray. I just thought it was really good and had that low shot that the keeper pushed away. It's quite funny if you watch his Spurs play interview when he's talking about that shot. He says something like, "It's like that, it's an idiot kind of thing." He saved it. It was like a proper kind of young person answer. Yeah, very, very funny indeed. And I think the other thing to know about Archie Gray, or to remember about Archie Gray, is that don't underestimate the fact that he's finally being able to train at a Premier League club fully as a midfielder. Last season, Matty Wells and the coaches would have been absolutely drilling him into how to be a centre-back, like a crash course in being a centre-back. He would have been constantly working with the back four, working on that side of his game, and probably the midfield side of his game was kind of stagnating a bit and just lying there untouched. Whereas it would have added other bits to his bow, don't get me wrong, but in terms of his midfield stuff, we are now at this point where Thomas Franklin's coaches are working exclusively on him as a central midfielder. And I think that's why we're just seeing his play kind of just develop further. And he was asked a good question in his post-match one by Ben Haynes, post-match interview, about like kind of what would you like to add to your game this season that you didn't have? And his answer wasn't so much about adding something, it was more bringing something back. He said, I think just getting stuff back from when I was younger, because obviously I didn't play in midfield too much recently, and I think just scoring goals and being more of a creative player further up the pitch, which was always my style of play when I was younger. I know people haven't seen it much because I haven't really played in midfield much, but at Leeds at the start of the season when I was there, obviously they saw that, but I just want to show that here, and every minute that I get, I just want to try and show that. So, yeah, it hadn't really crossed my mind until I was writing my talking points after the game, that he just hasn't spent much time while at Spurs being coached and developed into being a midfielder, in a Premier League midfielder. And I do think, yeah, it'd be interesting to see if we can see him playing further up the pitch, because I think he's got the ability to do it. He's got an incredible engine. Bearing in mind he hasn't played that many minutes this season. His engine at 90 minutes looked as good as it did in the first half. And, you know, you think about him and Bergvall, who obviously played that beautiful pass to Johnson. They are two stars in the years to come. And I think Pat Matasayu put in that bracket as well. So, yeah, very exciting if they keep heading in the right direction. Who else are we going to talk about? Matisse Tell. You could kind of smell the desperation of him. And I felt so sorry for him because I actually thought his performance wasn't awful at all overall. I think a lot of his off-the-ball play and his link-up play was quite good. But unfortunately, as a striker, you're judged on your finishing of chances, and he didn't really do it. And I think the reason I say about the waft of desperation is because, you know, we're still waiting for Randall Kalamawani's dead leg to be kind of brought back, risen from the grave. And when it does, you feel like he'll be the next in line for the striker slot, which puts Tell as kind of maybe third choice on the left. So minutes are going to dry up, and especially, you know, tough trip to Newcastle in the next round, so there's no guarantee that the Carabao Cup will continue to be an outlet for him to play in. And obviously we know he's not in the Champions League squad unless there is an injury, like a bad injury in which he can come in. Some teams done that. Is it Forest that brought in someone? Oh, I can't remember now. It might be Forest. Or it might actually be another club as well. But yeah, there's a rule, I think I said it before, where if someone is injured, I think maybe they're going to have to be injured for at least 30 days. You can bring in another player. I think that was a rule. Could be making it up. But yeah, I just feel like unless injuries and the heavy schedule changes things for him, little nights like this, or big nights like this for him really, are going to have to be, he's got to take his chances. And like I said, some quick, clever link-up play, ran well, but just in front of goal, fluffed his lines, unfortunately. Could have probably had a hat-trick on the night, to be honest. Brennan Johnson just seemed to be doing everything to try and set him up with chances as well. He had a couple of low ones. I think the first one, if I'm going to give him some kind of an excuse, I think he expected the defender to get it. And when the defender didn't get it, he was like, ugh, kind of thing. Whereas maybe, if I'm going to be ultra harsh perhaps, or just brutal, the top strikers react quicker. And they kind of anticipate in case there's a mistake, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? They kind of go through the motions as if the ball's still going to come through to them, whatever. And he didn't in that moment. And then had a very nice, actually early on he sent the ball over the top. Was that from Odemir or Xavi? I can't remember now. But he had an early chance. He had a powerful shot from outside the box that the keeper saved as well. And yeah, it was a performance that had a lot in it, but he just didn't get the rewards in front of goal. And I can't remember who asked him. Someone asked him about whether he has to lift Tell's confidence after a bad run, was the way the question was put. And he said, I don't think he's had a bad run, if I'm honest. He played a striker against West Ham, which I think he did quite well. He worked very hard to arrive in the right areas, which I think he did today. In terms of performance, I felt that was a step up. Then we look at the end product to score a goal, yeah, but the performance to arrive in the box I was happy with. Sorry, very happy with, he said. Just close with the first ball from Brennan, ready for the cutback. Second half got in there on two other good situations and had a nice shot. I think it was a step up in terms of performance. I think you can see that his ability in this game to arrive in the box and the pace he got to both running behind and also getting into the right areas, I think it's good. I think his pressing ability is very good. I like the way he works in that situation. And then I think his link-up play is something that is a good level, but can be even better. His pressing wasn't bad, actually. I forgot about that. And the thing is, he's scoring goals for like France under 21s. Scored some lovely ones the last month or so. But I think he just needs the ball essentially to go in off his backside. And that's pretty much, Thomas Frank agreed with that. He said, yeah, I think that's fair to say. Of course, he really wanted to score and do well. Unfortunately, as a striker, that's what you get measured on. Exactly the same as a keeper, you need to get measured. You can't throw it into your own goal. But I think the overall performance was really a step forward. But of course, I really wanted him to score as well because that would have made it an even better story. Someone who has no problem scoring, really, is Brennan Johnson. I felt that this was a performance, albeit against League One opposition. I felt like it had a lot of the good stuff that Brennan Johnson can bring to the game, which I think was important for his confidence as well. Because don't forget, he was drilled by Ange Postecoglou and his coaches to get to the byline cross, and it's still in his, I was going to say it's DNA, because it's not DNA, because it was drilled into him. Can you drill into someone's DNA? I don't know. Going old Jurassic Parky. But he had three low balls across, two for Tell, one for Richarlison. He actually had a really nice chipped cross, which the keeper just got fingertips to, which almost got to Tell as well. That wing play is trained into him. I don't think that's as natural for him. It's trained in for him, and trained into him, and I think that's why he still has issues to that he needs to improve on. He's admitted himself he has to improve on, like the 1v1 situations. I would love to see him use his pace more, because for his goal, the way his pace, he just flew between the defenders. And you kind of think, I still believe that I think he fears for his hamstrings after that one against Arsenal in his first season. But I just think if he kept going at the defence with the pace he does, I mean, he would just fly past them so many times. But I really actually like the natural ability in his game, and that is the movement, the timing into the box with his runs, but also his ability to finish is so good. I think people underestimate. I mean, the finish last night, that was striker's finish. That was keeper coming out and he just dinks it over him as he's coming. And I just thought everything about that. And I still feel like I want to see him through the middle more. I know his physicality isn't strong enough to be the lone striker with his back to goal. I get that 100%. But I think if Thomas Frank in occasions goes with like a 4-4-2 or any formation that would put two up front, I think Johnson would grab goals galore playing off Solanke or Richarlison up there. And look, I know some people just made their mind up that they just don't like him. I've genuinely had Spurs fans come out to me, I hate him. And he's like, why do you hate him? How can you hate the guy that was last season's top goal scorer, who is joint top goal scorer again this season with 3 with Richarlison? 3 goals from 4 starts, and 2 of those on the left. I do think people have got this kind of thing about Brennan Johnson where he'll annoy them in not doing what they want him to do down the wing, and they kind of write off everything else he's done, you know. Not least his involvement at that night in Bilbao was pretty special that we'll all remember, even though some people claim there was no involvement. He tells me there was. I asked him straight off. He told me there was. I can only believe what he tells me. But, you know, someone like Matisse Tell, I think, can look at Brennan Johnson's finishing and movement and timing into the box and learn from that. The Brennan Johnson debate. I do wonder if he's one of those players that just won't be truly appreciated until after he's gone. I do think he offers so much more than people realise, but he's got a job in his hands to just get in the team. You know, Kudus is going to be the kind of go-to man on the right. And the left, I don't particularly like Brennan Johnson on the left. I think those low crosses we spoke about, he obviously can implement and bring them far better on the right. But, you know, 2 into that 1 role aren't going to go. But yeah, there was another special moment last night. We got to see the 900th player for Tottenham Hotspur. We were all having a little kind of guesses before the game because there were 3 youngsters on the bench, and we were kind of wondering like who's going to get number 900. My guess was Janai Byfield, because I kind of thought with Paulinho in central defence, maybe at some point they get to a part in the game where they're comfortable enough that Paulinho can come off and Janai could go alongside Kevin Danso. It didn't happen, I think, because it was 2-0. I think if they got the third, maybe that happens. If they got the third at like maybe the hour mark, maybe you see Janai come on for the last 15, 20 minutes or so. But player 900 was Luca Williams-Barnett. Came onto the pitch, 16 years old, of course. It's just mad that he's only 16 and he's got to experience a night like that. It's incredible. What a wonderful moment for him, his family and the coaching staff, people like Stuart Lewis that have worked with him in the under-18s, like Wayne Burnett in the under-21s, and Bradley Allen as well, actually, in the under-18s too. He's just fun to watch, isn't he? He's got a little bit of magic and that fearlessness that comes with youth. I mean, he came on the pitch, and I think it was 2 minutes after coming. He came on in the 87th minute, I think it was. Within 2 minutes, I think it was Danso gave them the ball. He turned and just went, yep, I'm going to take them on. Took on 2 Doncaster players. One of them got a touch to it, but then when he span round, he realised the ball was still with him, Williams-Barnett. And he took it on, kind of turned inside one man and played this really clever touch outside to Destiny Udogie. Udogie goes down, gets down the left, puts the ball across. Johnson, I think, tries to have a shot, ends up flicking it on. Bergvall smashes a loose ball into the net, which would have been Williams-Barnett involved in a goal on his debut. But as it was, Johnson was way offside, so it didn't count. But I think in just that one moment, he showed he was comfortable in those surroundings. And that's a huge thing, really. Archie Gray spoke really well about him afterwards. He said, I think if he'd had 10 more minutes, he'd have scored. I was saying to him at the end, if he just had a few more chances to get the fullback. We've seen him in training, he's so sharp. And it's so exciting to see young players like that come through and do well in games and get given chances. I was once in his position, so I know what it's like. So I'll be helping him all the way. Archie Gray is just one of the nicest human beings on the planet. But I did find it incredibly amusing that this person that only turned 19 a few months ago was talking about this 16-year-old like a wise old professional kind of thing. But then you kind of look at it, and Archie Gray has already played 102 matches, senior matches, despite his age. But yeah, great night for the academy. Not only did they get their debut with Williams-Barnett, but also Janai Byfield on the bench, like I said, only 16 years old. Teenan Thompson, only 17, the winger, on the bench as well. He started really well in the UEFA Youth League game last week against Villarreal, but unfortunately picked up a really painful looking back injury that thankfully he's back, and he was back on the bench for this. But yeah, this was Luca Williams-Barnett's night. From what I understand, he's agreed the terms for his first professional contract. But the thing about these things, as you'll well know, he can't legally sign any contract until he turns 17, which is Wednesday. So there's still this little scary bit where, okay, Tim, terms have agreed, but please just sign it. Please sign that thing. I mean, look, he looks happy at Spurs. He just looked to be loving life last night. And, his family, I think I've said before, a big Tottenham supporting family. You could see them all up behind us. They were up above the media box and media press area in one of the boxes behind. And yeah, his interview was quite funny. It was classic and understandable 16-year-olds interview where I've been in there before. It's mainly with 18-year-olds. We don't really interview people that young. Because understandably the club wouldn't really want to give us players that young. I'm trying to think who have done quite a few 18-year-old interviews for Spurs. A lot of their first ones, because I think it's good experience for them as well. And you do have to stitch the answers together because, naturally they're going to give you quite short, sharp answers because it's a new thing for them. But I thought he did well. He did. Bearing in mind, I think Ben and it was Milesy as well asking the questions. I think they knew they were going to have to ask a lot of different questions, and yeah, he did well. It's quite funny. Just even like the little one where he was asked about who he wanted to thank, and he's like his dad for sacrifice and everything, or not sacrifice, but kind of being the person that brought him into football, and then his mum for cooking all his meals and stuff, and his sister for having his back, and his agent, which I don't know at 16 is I'm not sure that's the kind of the answer, but he's a 16-year-old. He's got a microphone in front of him for the first time. Of course, he's going to say whatever pops into his head. I'm sure if he'd, had a little bit more kind of briefing that he was going to have to do his interview, he probably would have spoken about those coaches I spoke about before, because obviously they've played a huge part as well. But it was a really nice interview. I sounded like I was nitpicking there. I'm not. I cannot stress enough to just go up there as a 16-year-old, not only do what he did on the football pitch, but then go and do an interview is incredible. It's amazing. It really is. And Thomas Frank was asked about him. He said, "It's always a pleasure to be part of a young player's debut. So happy with that. Definitely over the last few years, the focus on the talent development and academies across the world is so big. So the talent pool is bigger. There are these talents coming through that are younger and younger. But one thing is the debut when you're 16. The next step, and much more important, is how Luca or other players take these steps forward. It's very tough to keep going and then getting to the first team as a really regular player. But the first step is very important." He also spoke about Janiyah briefly. He kind of made sure of kind of crediting Janiyah in his Spurs play interview as one that he was being really pleased with, because he's been quite a big part of first team training. Because don't forget, so many defenders out injured. Dragoshan, Takai, Ben Davis as well. So, Janiyah's got some amazing development time with the first team. It may be that once they all come back, we kind of see him go back to the under-21s for a while. We don't see too much of him. But just that experience alone will be huge for him. He is a proper talent as well. And look, so is Williams-Barnett. He's just got to be nurtured in the right way over the coming years, because I think for Thomas Frank, it will be about using him as much in the right moments to help his development rather than hindering it. And what I mean is don't pander to pressure to throw him in. Because you can do that in the wrong times. I felt like Mikey Moore last season. There were a few times when I think injuries forced Postecoglou's hand, but there were times I was thinking, this isn't the game for Mikey Moore to be thrown into as a 17-year-old at that point. And look, we all do it. We all get carried away as fans and as journalists as well. And that young player, he must be ready, throw him in. And we'll see this little cameo that he's done, which was a nice little cameo. And then we'll suddenly think that he can be thrown into the hustle and bustle of like a Premier League game. And he's been quite honest. There was a really good interview that Luca Williams-Barnett did after the Cup final last season, after he scored a hat-trick against Charlton, I think it was. And he spoke about being a first-team training and actually how difficult he was and how kind of it really took him back, how much of a step it was and how tough it was to get to grips with. And he kind of said after Wednesday's game, last night's game as well, that just those few minutes was so fast. Even in like kind of that level of football, against League One, just football league football is so much quicker than he's been used to with 21s football. So don't kind of underestimate how big that step is for a young player. And he is 16. I know he'll be 17 on Wednesday, but my goodness, it's such a huge kind of leap for them as well. But I think it's about using him in the right moments, in the moments that will only help him, and also making sure he has the right moments with the under-21s as well. Because there's definitely been points over the years where I feel like Spurs managers have brought young players along with the first team, not used them, and they've actually missed out on quite important kind of learning time with the under-21s coaches in training sessions, but also in matches as well. Kind of big moments for them. And there's been a few over the years. Feel free to remind me in the comments because I'm blanking on loads of them. I know Will Lancashire went one season without not playing too much 21s football. Dane Scarlett the same, really. I mean, Dane, I'm surprised for him he didn't get off the bench himself just to get a few minutes and get something under his belt. But there's a few players like that never probably, it kind of stunted their development. That's the thing. It's such a fine line to developing players. And look, if he keeps working hard, for me, Luca Williams-Barnett, and develops in the way he has thus far, steers clear of injury because that can get the best, most hard-working players, I think he could be a name that we're talking about for a long time to come. But that's a hell of a lot of work still to get to that point. And one thing we can definitely say, he will forever be the 900th player to play for Tottenham Hotspur, which is amazing. So Spurs are through. Spurs are through to the fourth round, last 16, next round, whatever you want to call it. And they've drawn Newcastle, which will be played in a week starting October the 27th. It is not the kind of fixture you want either as the team or as fans or journalists trying to get up there, because it's a long way to go for a nighttime fixture, which probably means staying over for most people. What it also does is it throws another fixture grenade into nightmare fixture hell, which comes, I think it kind of begins after the next international break. So you've got Spurs host Aston Villa on the 19th. Then a couple of days later, they'll travel to Monaco in the Champions League. Then they come home a couple of days later to play Everton at their new stadium on the 26th. So in that week, you've already got 3 straight off the bat. That's just the appetizer. That is the mere warm-up to what comes next, because that run gets going. You've got that now, the trip to Newcastle in the Carabao Cup. Very quickly, a couple of days later, followed up by a home derby against Chelsea on November the 1st. Copenhagen are up next in the Champions League at home. Then, get ready for this, Man United, Arsenal, PSG, Fulham, and then Newcastle away in the Premier League, all in a run. You've got the November international break after the United game, but that is a hell of a run. Arsenal and PSG both away as well, by the way. It is like, I know everyone's got to play everyone. Every time I ever talk about fixtures, everyone's like, you've got to play everyone twice. That's all it is. It's not exactly that, because you can group the fixtures in a certain order that can be fixture hell, as I'm going to keep calling it, or fixture nightmare. Yeah, we have a lot of headlines that have to have those in them. But yeah, it's in the season as well when the pressure is on for Thomas Frank to compete across all 4 competitions. Although technically the person that said that is not at the top table anymore in Daniel Levy. But I think key for him, Thomas Frank, will be getting all of these players back now. We're in this little period where we might start to see some coming back. Fingers crossed. You've got Dominic Solanke, Kota Takai back in training with the team this week, both hoping to make their first appearance of the season, hopefully sooner rather than later. Maybe we'll get to see certainly maybe Solanke on the bench at the weekend. That would be nice. We'll find out tomorrow, I guess. Then you've got Randall Koala. I'm calling him a koala. Randall Kolo Mwani's dead leg, his deceased leg. And I had so many people when I put dead leg on Twitter was it the Brighton game? When I put that online to say that was the reason, I had so many people going, what is that? I thought it was just quite a common term. I don't know. I guess maybe it's more of a Sunday league thing. Used to play kind of a lot of weekend 11-a-side football, Saturdays and Sundays, and dead legs are quite common. It's essentially just when you get someone's knee or whatever goes into your muscle in your leg and it absolutely does something internally to it and just destroys it. And it can be a fair few days. I'll admit, this is a long dead leg issue. So whether there's something a little bit more to it than that, but he describes them both, and Ben Davies with his twisted knee as being minor injuries, but they've missed 2 games now. And we're all scared of that term, minor injuries, or, I'm sorry to say, it's just a knock. It's like the most horrific thing. I think someone pointed out that Ange Postecoglou's already used the expression "just a knock" for one of the Forest players, and you're kind of like, "I've got a little secret for you. Anyone involved with Tottenham, it's not just a knock." I asked about Pat Matsell was not in the squad last night, so I asked about him because he didn't come off the bench on against Brighton, so it made no real sense to rest him. And Thomas Frank said, Pat Matsell was just a minor precaution, a minor, how can you say, a little stretch to the thigh. So we didn't want to take any risks today. There's a good chance that he could be ready for Saturday. I hope he is, otherwise the minor thing comes into play again. And look, if they can get all of these players back, and I know that's a huge presumption that there's no more players get injured, but that squad starts to get pretty strong. And then you've got kind of in that scenario of who they're kind of fighting to get on the bench, let alone get into the starting 11. And that is the beauty of competition. That is what drives the best teams. That's the kind of competition, I think, that will push Spurs onto a higher level than they previously have been. And there's also Dejan Kulusevski still to come back as well. I think I said before, December looks to be the time he's coming back, but I'm sure he'll be aiming to come back earlier than that because he is the kind of guy that normally recovers pretty quickly. Obviously going through his rehab after his knee surgery. It's things have started very well for Thomas Frank on the whole, but it's going to get very, very tough. The games just keep coming thick and fast. It's a grueling schedule in the months to come. The other thing I was going to speak about, there was a little bit of flurry of activity and questions about, there were some share changes at Tottenham Hotspur. Not like sharing items of clothing or anything. More so that as in shares at the top of the club changed name, and I think they've become this big like injection of cash, transfer war chest, you say? And I don't know why I went all Matt Berry there. Look, it's been this kind of huge period of change. So I get it at Spurs. Daniel Levy's left, Vinay Venkatesham is the CEO, day-to-day runner of the club. Then you've got the Lewis family have come to the forefront of the club more. Actually, on Director's Box Watch, Vivian and Charles Lewis were both in the box again last night with Vinay Venkatesham. To be fair to Vivian Lewis, I've said it before, sorry if you've heard this before, but she's been there for most of the home games for quite a little while now, and she was also on the summer tour to Asia as well. There was this report in The Guardian that was about a public filing by the London Stock Exchange on Tuesday, which stated that the hotelier Andrew Ashcroft had purchased, ready for this, 8,023,942 shares in Spurs last Friday. The article said that while the price was not disclosed, recent valuations of Tottenham would place the value of the shares, which were a 3.4% share of the club, at around 100 million. So I think people saw the 100 million and were like, cha-ching! Here we go, it's time for money. Although, that doesn't even buy you one player at Liverpool nowadays. Was that an injection of cash into the club? Unfortunately not. It's not the case. From what I understand, the shares involved are this long-held stake, which was first reported back in 2008, that have now passed from, you might know, the former Conservative Party deputy chairman and the billionaire Michael Ashcroft is passed to his son, Andrew. I think, from what I understand, the rules dictate that when someone makes it clear their intention to make an offer for a company, then those with holding shares have to restate their holding, which apparently ENIC have done that as well in the last week or two or so. So this was a restatement of what was already owned, not a new purchase, but just with a new Ashcroft name on the shares. So hopefully that explains it. And if you're wondering what's caused that, it was obviously because we had that little flurry of two intentions to make an offer that were rejected by Spurs. You had the Asian Consortium of Investors led by Dr. Roger Kennedy and Wing Fai Ninji through the Firehawk Holdings Limited. And also you had Amanda Stavely and PCP International Finance Limited. Certainly the Amanda Stavely bid, PCP quickly said we're not going to make an offer. We haven't really heard anything from the Asian Consortium since. I think they got to October the 5th, I think, to make a bid if they're going to do that. But yeah, so so that's that explained for you. Not quite as exciting as perhaps it could have been, but it's interesting to know. I like, to be honest, I'd completely forgot that there was that there was this Ashcroft holding in the club, even just at 3.4%. Quick loan latest before we head off, because I do sometimes forget to do these. Luka Vuskovic had an interesting day. You know, might remember he had a bit of a nightmare debut against for Hamburg against Harry Kane and Bayern. Is kind of involved in the three of the Bayern goals and a bit of a drubbing, but he came back really well with second appearance. Played against Heidenheim on Saturday. Started off not too well. He missed a decent chance and he smashed the post and thought he'd fractured his finger. He was in a lot of pain. I think he had an old injury. He broke it a few months ago. But he would have felt a whole lot better because just before half-time, lovely volley technique. He's got such a good technique for a centre-back. Ball bounces out to him and he just drills this kind of volley into the back of the net. I think it took a slight touch, but it was flying in anyway. Fortunately, after the game, it was found that his finger was not broken. It was just bruised. And it got double good news because he's been called up to Croatia squad for their World Cup qualifiers. They named their squad very early, Croatia, but he is in there, which is great news. A lot of goals this week for various Spurs loan players. Manor Solomon scored the kind of late winning goal for Villarreal as they beat Sevilla 2-1 on the road. It was a nice finish, actually. Low left-footed finish that the keeper could kind of only get a leg to as it went into the net. He hadn't really played, and obviously he was unused on the bench against Spurs. Solomon, I think he played against Osasuna at the weekend, got an assist off the bench, and then has come on and won the game with a goal. Villarreal fans, I think, are desperate for him to start the games now, so you're probably going to see that. Mikey Moore is playing tonight in the Europa League for Rangers against who they got Genk, I think it is. He got involved. He was involved in a rare Rangers victory at the weekend. They beat Hibernian 2-0 in the League Cup quarterfinals. And I was looking at local media. He got a good review. I can read it out. Glasgow World gave him a 7 with the review. A reprieve after last week's halftime subbing. Got a bit of a tough time off the Hibs left-hand side, but showed his quality with the run for the second goal, and then showed flashes of quality. A constant live wire. So that's much better for Mikey Moore, who we know is in a rubbish situation there at Rangers, who was really struggling under Russell Martin. Alejo Veliz, we all thought he was going to be injured. I thought he was going to be injured, and so did the Argentinian media, because he had that ligament tear kind of between his shoulder and his clavicle. He had to come off. It was just before half time in his last game. Lo and behold, he's back. He's starting. Straight away in the next game, got a new bleached hairstyle. It's got a lovely goal for Rosario as they beat Talleres. Takes a deep cross down on his chest as he's running towards the box and just hammers his right-footed shot into bottom left corner. Lovely goal. Really nice. Talking of lovely goals, Alfie Devine. Rocket for Preston North End. If you can watch one of the group of goals, watch Alfie Devine's. My word, it just swerves and goes in at the top of the left-hand post. It's an absolute beauty. And he also deserves huge credit for one of the best knee slides I've seen in a long time celebrate. Just kept going. He could have gone out of the stadium. It was that good. He was called Magnificent in the Lancashire Post player ratings. So there you go. Outstanding quality as well. Doing really well there. Will Lancashire still playing well. He didn't score at the weekend. He had that little run of 3 goals in 4 matches, but played the full 90 minutes as Oxford got a bit of a shock. Their first win of the season, the championship, came at Bristol City, the 3-1 win. So I think he played the full 90 minutes of that game as well. Jan Min-hyuk missed Portsmouth's game against Sheffield Wednesday. They lost to them. He rolled his ankle in training, but he is back in training and expected to be in contention for their trip to Ipswich this weekend. Ashley Phillips and Jamie Donnelly, another game watching on from the bench, is not really happening for them right now. Jamie Donnelly's missed or was watched on 4 in a row. Ashley Phillips 3 in a row. I think if that continues, you can guarantee that we'll get to January and they'll be called back to then go and get a better loan somewhere else and it's not even like they've lost 2 of the last 3 games. It's a bit odd that they're not kind of being used, but can't really tell the loan club manager what to do. But it's just must be frustrating. I think it's Andy Scolding does all the loan stuff for Spurs. He must be very frustrated with that one. Alfie Dorrington, 90 minutes in their weekend game. They lost 1-0 Aberdeen to Motherwell at home. Then he was taken off at half-time against Dundee United because Dundee had just scored on Tuesday night. Didn't work. Dundee scored a second one 5 minutes later. So clearly it wasn't Alfie's fault. Back to great goals, George Abbott. I think he only scores great goals. Beautiful finish to open his account for Wickham. 2-0 win against Northampton in League One. Took, again, a bit like Valise, takes the ball down on his chest really nicely, but he bamboozled 3 defenders in the box and just strokes his effort into the bottom left corner. Beautiful. Also a very good knee slide afterwards as well. He's just getting so many minutes. 701 minutes in 12 appearances for Wickham. He's doing brilliantly. Absolutely brilliant. I really hope that at some point he gets a look in at Spurs. He's still he's 20 now. But my goodness, he's going everywhere and becoming a regular starter wherever he goes. And he just keeps taking that step up in his stride. Done League 2, now it's League 1. Demola Jay, obviously, on the loan watch. We know what he did at Spurs. We spoke about that. He also got 13 minutes from the bench against AFC Wimbledon at the weekend. They lost to them. Tyrese Hall scored his first, I think it must be his first 2 senior goals, actually, thinking about it. Really nice couple of goals. I only came off the bench for 23 minutes at the end as they beat Crawley 4-0 Notts County. First one, races up the pitch on a break with a player with the ball and just really nicely actually takes the ball, takes it inside, finishes well past the keeper, and then his next one was just his really calm, collected, low finish into the net. Beautiful. His first senior loan, he's doing really well, really good in League 2. So, yeah, a pretty positive loan roundup on the whole, apart from, Jamie Donnelly, Ashley Phillips, and Yang, really, because he hasn't got a lot of game time either. I wonder if he'll be another one in January they look at. Hasn't really worked for him thus far. So what we got next? We've got the press conference tomorrow with Thomas Frank, where he will talk about all things Wolverhampton and any other injuries, hopefully no new ones. And then Saturday night we have that daft late kickoff. I don't think I'm going to do a late night video early for the Sunday morning because I'm going to have so much work to do. And again, it's going to be one of those working till 3-4 in the morning ones, I think. I think I'm just going to have to probably record it at some point on the Sunday. But it will come. It will come, the next video. It will. I think that's it, really. I think that's all we can chat about. I think we drilled into the game, drilled into the share stuff. What else have we had? We had Fabio Paratici. He got a plea was agreed to where he gets, I think it was an 18-month suspended jail sentence by the Italian court. It's not seen as an admission of guilt or responsibility, from what I remember, but that's what it is, an 18-month suspended sentence. So we shall see. I think the expectation is still that he rocks up at Spurs in an official role. Is that a great look? Not particularly for me, but he is highly respected within the club and works well with Johan Langer, from what I've been told. So we'll see whether there's any changes in the heart over the coming days and weeks, whatever. But we shall see. Otherwise, everything's kind of pointing forward at Spurs, which is a good thing. Feels like we're heading in a decent direction right now. And yeah, Wolves up next. Then I shall be heading off to Norway to go back to Buda and the lovely little seaside town where everything is within a 10-minute walk. It's very helpful because you can just walk to the airport, you can walk to the stadium, walk to the hotel, walk to the front and see the water. I think the weather's supposed to be okay as well. I think we'd not have wanted that game in January, I'll tell you that. But as it's now, I think it's okay. I'm also going to go and watch the UEFA Youth League game as well, which I think is 11 a.m. local time, so that'll be 10 a.m. here, I think. On the morning of the game, they'll be playing at the stadium as well. I think it's what is the Aspmyra Stadium? I can't remember what it's called now. Because it's artificial pitch, it doesn't matter. You can play as many games as you like on it. So that'll be cool. And I think Luca in his interview said that that's how he's going to celebrate his birthday next week is by scoring in that game, which I thought was really good to kind of make sure you're very much stating the youth game. Well, that was pretty cool. And hopefully he does as well. So yes, you'll get my thoughts on that, and you'll get my thoughts on the main Champions League game itself afterwards, which, they were tough opponents. They were. That was, was it 2-0 in the end on the day there, but they will have pushed on as well because they're playing Champions League football. They'll have needed to. And you come down to that thing of who can play on the artificial pitch as well. It's not that good for players with hammy injuries, knee injuries, whatever. Previous injuries. Right, time to go. I shall be back with you on Sunday, but hopefully there's enough in there to get your teeth into, as it were, or your ears into, or your eyes into if you're watching it. Right, time to head off. As always, stay healthy, stay safe, look after yourselves. I shall catch you later. Goodbye.